So let's get into it. So we're just a bit of housekeeping. Nothing big here. No strict rule here, but just to give a sense, please feel free to use the chat. There's both me and Mark on the call, so we'll do our best to monitor. Depending on who's talking, the other can monitor, and we'll do our best to address anything that does come up. The Everybody's going to be on mute just to limit interruptions, but feel free to use the chat again to ask questions, and we can unmute people as required if they have any specific questions. The session is recorded, so if you want to watch it after the fact or share it with others, you'll get the link later on. And please feel free to reach out to our marketing team at marketing@netboxlabs.com if you're having any issues at all, either with the actual Zoom session or signing up or anything else like that. So please feel free to reach out on anything like that. So on that note, let's kind of get into the real crust of things. Upcoming events. We've had a bunch of events in October that we talked about previously, obviously, that were a lot of success, like NANOG and ONUG. But now coming up is Cisco Live happening in Australia next week. So our very own Rich Bibby is there, plus a few others from NetBox Labs. So if you're kind of on that side of the planet and going to be at Cisco Live, please do reach out to us. Rich would love to spend some time with you to talk NetBox, geek out on NetBox and everything related. So that's the November 10th to the 13th in Melbourne. And the week after that is the big network automation show, which is AutoCon 4 happening in Austin, Texas. I'll be there, Mark will be there, and a whole slew of other NetBox Labs and NetBox affiliates will be there. So we would love to see you there as well. So if you're there, please do reach out. And on that note, there's a lot of things happening around both NetBox and NetBox Labs at AutoCon 4 that I just want to highlight. One of the ones is we're running a workshop, but unfortunately, as far as I know, that one is sold out. So unfortunately, if you haven't signed up for it now, it won't be there. But don't despair. I think there's going to be some great content that's coming from that workshop that we will make available through the NetBox Learnings repo or other similar places from that. So I think it's going to be a great workshop, but we're also going to be sharing the content of that workshop more broadly. So if you can't make the workshop, you'll still be able to get access to that. But the other thing I want to talk about was we'll be having not just one but two social events this year, or for this AutoCon. Typically, we've had one with kind of an evening NetBox and Friends happy hour, and we're having that again. It's going to be on the Wednesday night. And so that's always a lot of fun. But we're also going to have a coffee hour on the Friday morning of the last day of the event. And so this is a chance to share coffee. We'll also be giving out coffee to take home from here. So definitely we'd love to see you there or at one or both of the events. Feel free. So the QR code at the bottom of the screen here will take you to the registration page where you can sign up if you want to join one or the other or both events. So looking forward to seeing you there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And for just a plug beyond kind of NetBox Labs being there, I think AutoCon is just a great event in general, particularly if you're into network automation. It's all things automation, and there's not a bad discussion had there. There's no wasted time. Just great relationships, people who are from who are learning, who are kind of veterans, and a mix of everybody in between. I just think it's a great event if you really want to bootstrap yourself into network automation. On that note, just on the other on the other subject of events, I did want to highlight the fact that we also offer at NetBox Labs some NetBox trainings on a regular basis. So there's some free NetBox basics training that we offer on a pretty regular basis, typically every month. That you can sign up for. So this is maybe less for the crowd on this call, but if you have colleagues that or friends who would like to learn more about NetBox and you'd like to kind of get them bootstrapped into the NetBox world, these are great trainings just to get them started, getting going without you having to spend the time to do that. So again, I think those are great trainings. And then we have more in-depth training, more hands-on NetBox training fundamentals that are actually given by Rick Donato of Packet Coder. And so those you can also sign up for and kind of get deeper into the weeds of NetBox. So just wanted to highlight those trainings are available. And on that note, let's kind of move on to some of the NetBox news, and I'll pass this to Mark.
Yep, thanks, Richard. So I'm not going to go through all of the details. You'll notice that I've kind of compressed this slide because we used to go through each patch release, but as you probably know, they come out every 2 weeks now. Now, they primarily focus on bug fixes, but occasionally if there are feature requests we can get in there that don't have backwards incompatibility issues, then we'll put those in there too. So I'd encourage you to scan the QR code and then go check out 443, 444, and 445. Just a few things to call out. Right up at the top is enabling NetBox Copilot. So NetBox Copilot kind of does what it says on the tin. If you are on 445, you'll find that there's now an admin setting to enable NetBox Copilot. NetBox Copilot allows you to talk to your data in NetBox. You can sign up through there. And there's all sorts of information to tell you like which LLMs we're using and where your data is going and everything else. So if you're uncomfortable with that, you can try it out in a like a demo environment first. You can also try it out on demo.netdev, demo.netbox.dev. I'm blanking. What's the demo site? I type it all the time. Hold on.
It is demo.netbox.dev.
So if you go to demo.netbox.dev and sign in there with admin, people keep switching it off, but you can switch it back on. So go to admin, switch it on, and you can try it out there. Also, it's now enabled in any 445. So like I said, it's switched off by default. If you switch it on, you can try it out, and you can ask it questions around what kind of data is in NetBox. That's been getting a lot of work recently. It's free to get started. And then if you want to use it more, you can pay. But I believe that the free limits are pretty generous, because right now we just want to see people using this and figuring out how we can make that pattern better. A few other things that are called out below, kind of in no particular order. Copy to clipboard buttons for custom script output is like a big kind of time saver for people who are doing a lot with custom scripts, and especially if you're kind of copy and pasting that stuff and put it into something else like spreadsheets or elsewhere for reporting. Some improved rendering on VLAN ID ranges and VLAN group tables. So if you're doing a lot with VLAN groups, this makes it a little bit easier now to see what's going on. Same kind of thing from visualizing existing relationships around adding contacts column to the IP addresses table so you can see which IPs belong to who. And then the last one that I've decided to call out here is assigned and primary Boolean filters for MAC addresses. So that's probably 5 out of about 50. We continue with patch releases for NetBox. 446 is coming out the week after next, and ultimately we're working up to 450. If you're interested in what's currently planned for 450, you can follow the QR code, which will take you to the general releases page, which is the same as the link at the bottom for NetBox, and go and have a look in the 450 milestone. That is probably going to change a little bit. Some things might drop out, some things will come in, but it'll give you a sense of where we are headed.
Hey, Mark, it might be worth reminding everyone kind of why the cadence on these maintenance releases. I think the decision was a little while back, but maybe not everybody's aware that we've moved to a 2-week cadence for these maintenance releases rather than the more ad hoc schedule that it was kind of previously. And so that's why they might seem to come fast and furious, is because to make them more predictable, we've decided to release them every other week. Now, we can't have an asynchronous one if there's an emergency release or some major bug that comes out that needs to be patched immediately. They might come out of that sequence, but in general, they come every other week.
That's right. And actually, it's a really good 444 is a good example of that, where we found an upgrade bug quickly after 443. So we decided to release that out of cadence. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, custom objects 040. So custom objects, you'll have heard me come and talk on this call about over the last few months. We moved to 040 not a long time ago now. We'd been doing so much work before that if you look at the actual release notes for 040, it's a little underwhelming because we're really just figuring out the last bits. What we're focused on now is learning from the community, and already, I don't know if any other people are on this call, but we've definitely got some power users in there who are giving us a ton of really good feedback. So you can expect to see 041 on the horizon. I think beginning of next week, but we're figuring that out. And then 050 will have more of the like less of the bug fixes and more of the bigger features that people have requested that we haven't been able to get into custom objects so far. I do want to call out one thing specifically, which is the current state of branching support for custom objects. We've got what we're calling limited branching compatibility right now, which means you can run custom objects and NetBox branching alongside each other, but you should check the caveats because it won't work exactly as you expect it to. It won't break, but we've put it in that state for now just so that people can try out custom objects while they also have branching installed. And then one of the things we're looking to for the future is how do we get full branching support for custom objects into 050 or further down the line. Actually, one quick shout out there. We're going to say this again at the end, where I think Richard is going to ask for people like Raymond and Twan did to come and submit their potential talks. But if you're doing something with custom objects, we really want to hear from you. So pretty easy to find, or use the email at the end, and we'll get you scheduled.
Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Sure thing.
I don't see any questions popping up in the chat, so I think we can move forward. If you do have questions, don't be shy. We can also address them after our guest speakers. And that takes us to our main event. So without further ado, Twan, Raymond, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I'll try to take over.
Yes, thanks for having us. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing to the community.
Thanks for having us, Richard. I'll try to share my screen. No, can I get rid of this? Yeah, sure. Okay. I think you can all see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint presentation.
Glad to hear. We'll just put this at the bottom here. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Twan. I'm here with my friend Raymond. We both maintain a repository called the NetBox to Zabbix sync. This is a script which has been in development for quite some time now. I think we're reaching about 5 years now. It started as a small little script for the organization that I work in, and it started to become much bigger than that. So we thought, why not talk a bit about it during a community call? Let's just start with who are we? Well, I'm Twan Kamans. I work at Alliander. This is a electricity and energy company here located in the Netherlands. Raymond, maybe you can also introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, so my name is Raymond Kuiper. I'm an infrastructure specialist at a company called Retigra. And our company focuses on infrastructure observability, and we use NetBox and Zabbix extensively. And the sync script we're going to talk about here today is a major part of the framework that we use to monitor our client systems. So
cool, thanks. Before we get started talking about the script, let's first start talking a bit about what Zabbix actually is. I mean, we all know NetBox, at least I presume that. But what is Zabbix? Well, Zabbix lets you monitor your infrastructure. It's a monitor suite. It provides agents, it provides a server, a front end, proxies. And basically, Zabbix advertises mainly with open source and the availability to monitor almost everything. Well, almost everything, depending on if that's a good idea or not, that's debatable. But you can monitor a whole lot. Think of network equipment or servers. They have an agent, so you can install the agent on Windows or Linux. Basically, it integrates with many vendors, and it does not matter where that infrastructure is located, like on-prem or in the cloud, etc., etc. It's also very flexible in regards to pulling or pushing the data. And it's a very flexible, customizable, like NetBox is. That's why we love it. And it's also very scalable by using Zabbix proxies. So you can monitor very, very different types of hosts at scale. Two things that I want to highlight is Zabbix has a couple of key components which we need to talk about before we continue. which is hosts. Well, a host is an object that gets monitored, obviously, but a host has a template, and the template is sort of a mold. It defines what gets monitored on that host. And it also has host groups. So host groups are a way of maintaining a hierarchical setup in regards to your host. So basically, in which groups a host gets populated. Let's talk a bit about, the script itself. So the way how we see it is that we use NetBox as a front end for the Zabbix configuration. So if we have colleagues and they need to monitor something, they don't need to have Zabbix knowledge in order to monitor the host with Zabbix. They need to have access to NetBox. So NetBox always stays on control. It's our source of truth for our infrastructure. But we need to make the script, so the gears under the hood, so user-friendly as possible. So logs, journals, and a simple configuration will help that. We don't want to force our philosophy on how you need to monitor something or how your monitoring infrastructure needs to look like on our users. We provide a flexible option, an all-in-one package, which is highly customizable in order to suit every single monitoring environment. So we don't want to force our own idea of monitoring. No, we just want to give you the tool set in order to sync NetBox to Zabbix. We mostly do this using custom fields and config context, and especially the last one makes it very powerful, I would say, very powerful in order to implement different types of options for monitoring. I'm going to walk you through a bit about just running the script, boots on the ground, as simple as it goes. So we have a couple of steps. First off, obviously, prepare NetBox. Secondly, how will the code be executed? And thirdly, setting a bunch of environment variables. It's not too hard. So obviously, we have our API token here, and we have two custom fields. If this goes all a bit too quick, don't worry. This is all explained in the README on the repo. But we have two custom fields. One is for the Zabbix template, which I mentioned previously, and the other is for the host ID, so we can make a connection between a NetBox object and a Zabbix host. Okay, secondly, we need to clone the repo. So in this case, I'm not using Docker for deployment. I'm just using the code itself. So we clone the repo. We create the environment. In this case, this is optional, but recommended. And then we install the packages. And finally, we set a bunch of environment variables. So details on how to connect to Zabbix and connect to NetBox. And after we run the script, then we can see that a host has been created for Zabbix. We can see that the host groups are added, which is a parent-child nested setup. So we can see that the default value for the host group is always the location, so the site name, and then a slash for the manufacturer name, and then lastly, the device role name. This is configurable, obviously, but we need to enforce some kind of default. And then finally, at the bottom, we can see our newly created host. Now that we have our host, let's change something. So in this case, we provide a use case where the device gets upgraded to a different model. So we, in this case, swap our switch in our rack from a Cisco Catalyst 4750 to a 9407. We can do this by changing the device type. And after we do that, the script will detect that the templates mismatch. Obviously, the Cisco 9407 is a completely different beast kind of switch. So it needs to have a different type of template in order to monitor different kinds of code. So for instance, VSS, so some kind. And we can see that the script recognizes this drift and will fix that for us. Wonderful. And we can see that actually here in Zabbix as well. So we can see that it has a new template called Cisco Modular Switch. Another feature that we provide is multiple templates. So if you have a host which needs to monitor different kinds of things, then you can assign multiple templates using a config context list format here. Let's look at the different use case. Typical, an organization wants to upgrade some devices from SNMP v2 to v3. So let's look a bit into that. By default, we create interfaces using SNMP v2. And we can see the deployment options here down below. How would we approach this? Well, once again, obviously config context. We create some kind of snippet. We, in this case, hook it up to a tag. This is our preferred method, but you can also directly connect the config context obviously directly to a host, but that does not scale very well. We recommend sticking it to a tag and then linking that tag to the devices in which you want to deploy or migrate to SNMP v3. We can validate that this works by looking at the rendered context. And after we initiate our sync, the script detects a drift, and we can see that it pushes the newly found configuration to the interface. And once again, we can check in Zabbix that this actually is the correct configuration in this case. Obviously, one downside with this is that we have plain text information in our config context, quite sensitive information. So how would we mitigate that? Well, Zabbix has this concept called macros. You can think of these quite simply as variables, and we can store different types of data in that variable. As you can see, we can use text. We can also use secret text, but we can also use a vault secret. And a vault secret is especially useful because that links to an external source, for instance, an HashiCorp vault instance. And this is really cool because then we can secure our data in there and link it with Zabbix to a macro in this case. All we need to do after that is update our config context. We provide the macro name, so the variable name in this case, in the snippet, and then we see that the new data gets pushed towards Zabbix. Okay, this was it from my side. I'm going to hand it over to Raymond now, who's going to talk a bit more about the config and different kinds of use cases for the script.
Cool, thanks, Don. Yeah, so one of the other things that we wanted to highlight is the Zabbix inventory. Zabbix has a concept of inventory, and basically what it is a list of fields that contain things like serial numbers, asset tags, location data, operating system names, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap with the fields that we have available in NetBox, so it was only logical to actually implement a sync for those fields as well. Inventory has different modes in Zabbix. So you have disabled, which means you don't actually register any of that stuff. The second option is manual, which means that you have to either manually type in the information yourself or use the Zabbix API to populate those fields. And there's a third option, which is automatic. The automatic option allows you to pull in data through the various metric gathering systems that Zabbix has, and you can output your metric values as the value for those fields. We're not going to discuss this now. For the example, we're going to set the mode to manual for this specific demo. So if we now go to NetBox, next slide, please, Ton. Yes. So in NetBox, we have all these fields which kind of overlap, right? So we have the rack location, platform, the server room location, all that kind of stuff that's registered on this host. We would like to populate this information into Zabbix. So can you show the next slide? So in order to do this, we need to set up a little bit of configuration file. One of the first things that we want to enable in this case is to use the newly added extended site properties flag. Enabling this flag will allow us to look up site data for a device. This is a little bit more API intensive, so that's why we made it an optional flag that you can enable or disable. But this allows us to, for instance, look at site latitude, site longitude, to actually synchronize those to the device in Zabbix. I'll show you later why that's a handy thing to do. So the next option is the inventory mode, which we discussed earlier. So in this case, we're going to set it to manual. And also, of course, we need to actually enable the inventory sync. So that's the third option that we're going to enable. The fourth option is the device inventory map. And the device inventory map is actually a list of NetBox fields on the left side, which are going to be synced to the Zabbix inventory fields on the right side of this list. So for instance, the virtual chassis name in NetBox will be synced to the chassis field in Zabbix. And likewise for the serial number and serial number A field, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So now when we run a sync, in this case, we run the sync with debugging on, you can see that for the host that we're going to sync, the script is going to try and look up all of those fields. Any field that's not filled in NetBox will return an empty field, empty value. So we're going to ignore that one. And in the output routes in the output, you can actually see all of the fields that were resolved by the script to the values that we're going to be able to push to Zabbix. And the last line of the log actually shows you that the host is updated with all of those inventory field data. So for instance, the server room location, and also the GPS data and location let and location long fields. Next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. So now, after running the scripts, you can see all of the NetBox data on the left also is now populated to the Zabbix inventory field data. If you then go to the next slide, on the right side of this slide, you can see an example of how you can actually use that data. So Zabbix has the option to create your own custom dashboards. You can draw your own network maps in those. In the network map, you can see that the location, server room, and the serial number of the device are now being put in the label of this switch. And also, just a little bit lower than that, you can see a geomap, which actually uses the GPS data that we use to sync from the site in NetBox. Other things where these fields can be useful is, for instance, by sending out notifications. The inventory fields can be used to, for instance, during an alert message, also send out, for instance, the serial number of a device, so your support tech actually knows which device to look for in the rack once he's there. Next slide, please. Twan mentioned it before. Zabbix host groups, very useful feature. As mentioned, it's a hierarchical set of groups. So host groups can be nested, basically like folders in a file system. Any host in Zabbix can be a member of multiple groups. And as said, in Zabbix, we can manage the permissions of any user based on the groups that the host is a member of. So that means that if you have, for instance, a group of database servers, your DBAs can get read-write access to any host that's a member of your databases group, but your I don't know, your application administrators only have read access, for instance. You could set up that stuff through the host groups. And also, of course, you can use host groups in notifications. So if, for instance, a Linux server that is a member of the Linux servers group has an alert, you can send out an alert to any member that of your staff that actually manages those servers. Next slide, please. So to enable the host group sync, one of the useful things is to enable the option to create host groups, because we generate the host groups then dynamically. It could be that you don't already have all of the host groups that you need in Zabbix, but the script can handle this for you. That's why we need to enable that option. The second and third option in the configuration file are to traverse regions and traverse site groups. And what this enables us to do is, for instance, if you have nested regions, so I think a lot of people will have probably a region, I don't know, like Europe and then Netherlands, that nesting, by enabling the traverse regions option, we will look up those. We will do a full lookup of all of the names in that tree of regions, and we can use those to generate the host group names. The fourth option that we need to enable is the host group format. And the host group format basically just tells the script, okay, use these NetBox fields for the host group names. And we also allow to hard code string text in there. So in this case, we have a list of 3 host groups. The first host group is the hard string devices, followed by the role of the device in NetBox. The second group is going to be the region, the site group, and the site name of the site that the device is a member of in NetBox. And of course, because we've enabled those traverse options, it's going to be expanded as far as we can. And the third group is going to be the hard-coded string of vendors, followed by the manufacturer of the device type in NetBox. The next slide. If we then run the script, you can see that the script tries to resolve all of the properties that we want to use. So in this case, region, Europe, Netherlands, the site group, and the site of the device role will all be printed in the debug. About halfway in the log, you can see that a couple of host groups that we need to have were missing in Zabbix, and that they are actually created by the script. And then just a little bit below that, you can see all of the group matchings that are found. So the script has found all of the 3 groups that we want to assign the host to. And then lastly, in the log, you can see that the host is updated with all of those group IDs. Next slide, please. So, and then if we have a look in Zabbix, you can actually see that this host is now a member of the devices core switch group, Europe, Netherlands offices, Acme headquarters group, which is the site, and the vendors Fullbar Industries group, which is the vendor. Right. Next slide, please. The last thing that we wanted to address here is the possibility of the custom links. Because during the sync, we write the Zabbix host ID back into NetBox in a custom field, we can actually use a dynamic custom link using some Jinja to generate a button in the device overview that will link you back to Zabbix for any of the pages that you would like to access in Zabbix. So in this case, we're going to create a link that links to the host inventory field. Host inventory page in Zabbix. Next slide, please. By enabling that custom link, you now have a button in the device overview, and if you push the button Show Host in Zabbix, it will bring you to that host inventory page. You could just as well do this also for the problem overview, or maybe the latest data overview, or the host dashboards, whenever you want. So in our own setup, we've actually created a little menu that has multiple links to the different pages within Zabbix, and that's really useful to quickly navigate from NetBox to the current open problems in Zabbix, for instance. Next slide, please. Using a little bit of functionality in the script that we added, it's also possible to do the same thing the other way around. So the user macros that one mentioned before, we can use that mechanism and sync those. We can use that syncing mechanism to actually create links that will point to NetBox. So Zabbix has the option to add front-end scripts. Here you can see a configuration for one of those scripts, and this will allow you to create a context menu for the host. And if you then click on the name of the host, it will bring you to the NetBox page. The important thing here is the user macro nb_URL. And we're going to sync that from NetBox in our next slide. So in order to do this, we need to enable user macro sync in the configuration file. And then we also have to create a device user macro map, which is sort of similar as the inventory mapper that we assigned earlier. But in this case, we're going to use the display URL field in NetBox, and we're going to populate the nb_URL user macro in Zabbix during a sync. And just for fun, we're also going to sync the NetBox ID to the nb_ID field in Zabbix. So when running the script, the output you can see below, The last line, you can actually see that that the user macros are out of sync, and it's going to be updating those macros on the host. So if we go to the next slide, anywhere in the front end of Zabbix where you see the host name, you can now click on it, and it will show a NetBox link in the context menu that opens. And if you click that, then you can actually, you'll be redirected to the device page in NetBox. So next slide, please. Thank you. And back to you, Tuan.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much. I saw the chat popping some questions. I think I'm going to answer them in a minute. But before we do that, you're free to try the script yourself. It's listed on this repository link. If you have any questions or feature requests, then feel free to create them over there and we'll take a look at them. Thanks for the attention, everyone, I guess. Once again, Richard, thank you for the spotlight on us for this project that we've been running for quite some time now.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This was great. And I think there are some questions. Did you want to field them? I can guide you to them. I guess one of the questions is, what if I have multiple Zabbix servers?
Right. Well, if you have multiple Zabbix servers, that's an environment which I work in as well, then you can assign the Zabbix servers to multiple host group custom fields. So you'll just replicate, or you'll just, by the amount of Zabbix servers that you have, then you create multiple Zabbix host ID fields, custom fields in NetBox. And then in the configuration.py file, which Raymond focused way more on than I did. I just did a simple thing and default config, but you can actually assign the name of the Zabbix host ID field in the config.py file. So you'll run the script on two different ways then, one with the original name and then with a different Zabbix host ID field name, and that will link to two different servers. If you don't do that, then the two servers and the two scripts will override each other with the host IDs.
Yeah, just to extend on that, you do have the option to set up a API host filter. So if you would like to, you can even target a certain filter on a certain Zabbix server and target your other Zabbix server with a different host filter. Device filter in the NetBox. So you can set up different filters using those different custom fields. You can completely sync to multiple instances if you want. Yeah, you can mix and match whatever you like.
Yeah,
that should work
for sure.
If you're having problems with those things, just feel free to create an issue on the GitHub, and we'll try to guide you through it if that's a thing that you actually want to do. So,
Awesome. Got another question come in. Any advice on pushing device data from an existing Zabbix into a new NetBox?
Right. So this is an issue which I think is still open on our repository. We're going to do this using some kind of one-off script on which you can run. We probably won't implement it on this existing script. Because it's simply the other way around as we would like to push data around. But with a new field deployment, and I can completely understand that valid point, and we will likely create some kind of one-off script which you can use to kick your infrastructure off then.
Very good. I see others are jumping in that you're inspiring them to write similar scripts for other management platforms like Libre and MS. So great stuff, guys.
I also see a question of Jacco, who has a client that has nested reaches that go 4 levels deep. So for the host group formatting, that should work. Actually, we have the same. So the number of levels doesn't really impact the script in any way. So you're not limited to only two levels deep. You can go as far as NetBox will allow you. So as long as the group name in Zabbix doesn't get too large. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I think that's quite an extensive long string that you can use there. So no problem. shouldn't be an issue.
Cool. I've got a bit of a question, and not to go too far off the path, but so this is a script that you run, and you've kind of shown the manual way of running. Do you have any specific recommendations around running it automatically? Should it be run daily, hourly, or not at all? It should always be run manually.
Right. I'll just start with this one, and then Raymond will share his story as well, because he does some cool things as well. Obviously, one of running this is very cool in a demo environment, but it won't get you far in a production environment. So good call from Richard over there. Now, what I would suggest is running it hourly. If you have a decently small deployment, once you start to scale things up, take a look at maybe each 4 hours or 12 hours, depending on what the environment suits. I run it hourly using a systemctl file. So it will just run by itself. No hands-on required. And maybe Raymond can share a bit about his of running it.
Cool. So in the past, we used to have a cron job that just ran the script every now and then. Currently, we're using a Jenkins pipeline actually that runs every hour to do the integration for us. So and we use Docker containers in Kubernetes to actually run this. So the Docker image that we provide, we actually use that in a Kubernetes environment to run it every hour through a Jenkins integration. Yeah. So all of that stuff should work. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, guys. And I don't see any other questions, so I think we are done. One last call for any other questions, any other comments.
Maybe I just realized maybe one more thing that I would like to add is we demoed devices, but we also fully support virtual machines, as you would expect, but we didn't highlight it in this demo.
Good call out.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys. This is great. Let's go back to our story. So similar to Tuan and Raymond, they came from one of our previous community calls and decided they wanted to sign up and show their great work. Same thing here. I'd like to make a call out to everyone. If you've got anything that you're working on, it doesn't even have to be quite as grand and as kind of developed as this example. There's all sorts of great stories. I'll echo Mark earlier, who's looking for some custom objects, success stories, or even maybe not success stories, maybe challenges, anything and everything about how you're using it and your experience with it. I think others would love to hear those stories. And so like a call out to anybody else who'd like to speak on one of these community calls in the future. I also want to make it a little broader. Some people just aren't into public speaking and would rather do it in written form or some other medium. We're open to that as well. We just loved people to share their stories. There are other places, a number of different repositories associated with the NetBox project, including NetBox Learnings, that might be great places for some of these things. So this is just a great way to get known in the community. It's a great way to build a network. It's a great way to just meet other folks that have similar challenges or similar business problems they're trying to solve with NetBox. So on that, just a call out. If you've got something, we'd love to hear it. And so let's move on to our last slide, which is our next call, which will be in December, on December 9th, Tuesday, typical same time. We'll see you in a month. Between now and then, there's AutoCon, so I'm hoping that we'll be seeing some of you there while we're there. And if we don't, well, we'll talk to you on next Tuesday on December 9th. And again, just to repeat myself, if you got a story to tell, we'd love to hear it. So please send in your submissions, and we'd love to hear from you. On that, Mark, any last words? Anything else you want to before we wrap this up?
Just one very quick one, which is I went and found the docs for NetBox Copilot. If anyone's curious about how that works and where it sends you data and all that other kind of stuff, so I dropped it in the chat.
Thanks, Mark. And one last thank you to Tuan and Raymond. That was great. Awesome demo. Awesome Awesome stuff, awesome work, all those years and putting it together. I'm sure there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in there. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for sharing that with the community.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for having us, and thank you all for the NetBox project itself. It helped us out tremendously.
Would love to hear it. Thank you. And on that note, have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.